Good day to you. This is Anagalactic, coming right back at you with the secret of the universe. Today is Saturday, the 6th day of January, and we're now going to close out a three-part series in order to introduce a series of some 2 to 3 dozen 10-minute lectures to be produced this winter and on into spring if necessary, covering in 10-minute segments the discoveries made here at Anagalactic over the past 2 years. Now, this has been a journey of discovery, but where we're at now is the 5 basic objects that go to make up all of mathematics and all of geometry, which we're going to need now in order to fully capitalize on the rebasis of science itself on a new number system, which is an extension of the linear number system, which I discovered in 2022, called the spherical number system. This has never before been surmised. From the time of the Greeks all the way to the present day, there has only been one geometry that's ever been used in science. That is a system of lines. And currently, the prevailing physical geometry of the universe, the geometry of physical space, which we consider to be reality, it is a spherical system. The universe is uniform in all directions as far as we can tell, but the universal it's based on gravity. The way this was finally resolved was by Albert Einstein, and he performed just a very good bit of magic, having capitalized, basically stood on the shoulders. I don't really like that expression, but utilizing the discoveries that had been made in mathematics, especially complexity, which is a way of utilizing an imaginary space in order to extend the linear system to embrace some kind of irrational circular function. And that is, of course, redundant. The circle is irrational. Now, one of the reasons why we need an overhaul of our number system is that it cannot compute complete space, which then would have to be balanced according to all the laws of physics and mathematics and logic. If you're modeling a space, you have to be sure that it's complete so that it will be balanced. That is not possible with linear numbers. That's why the circle is irrational. And of course, because the circle is irrational, so is the sphere. There is only one logical solution to that, and that is to reunitize the mathematics system. Now that, of course, is so revolutionary, so absolutely astonishingly an overhaul, that it wouldn't even be sufficient to call it the greatest discovery of all time. It would have to be called a step of evolution, and that is the correct use of the word evolution. So there's our bracketing information. In the 2 parts of this lecture series, so far, we have covered, first of all, the 3 objects which are geometric objects, and we've begun to talk about the 2 other objects which are numeric objects. And these 5 items, which I'll put in 2 groups, these 3 are geometric objects: the line, the circle, and the sphere. These 2 mathematical objects are the number 1 and the number 2. We've covered the line and the circle and have introduced the sphere. But now, in order to complete our work in fully understanding, for the first time in human history, just what is the geometry of the sphere, we need to take an extraordinary, an unprecedented journey into an understanding of numbers, which if you're anything like me, sounds more dreary and boring and tedious than anything imaginable, and this would be considered a punishment, perhaps for not doing your homework, well, then you're going to have to study the number system then. There's your punishment. Well, I hope you find this interesting. The number 1 has a name in just non-mathematical language. The number 1 is unity. It represents unity. Unit, I believe, is Latin, simply means 1. Uno, we get that in Spanish, and in French. It's 1, even German, eins. So it's got an N in there, that's it, and a vowel in front of it. That's uni. Uni. Well, you may recognize that from a rather famous word, which really only became famous in the 20th century, and now everybody, from the lowest IQ to the highest IQ, everybody is in agreement. Everybody knows what the universe is. Let's just make sure you and I are on the same page as we delve into this most extraordinary topic. Nobody knows anything about the universe. And there are several very, very convincing reasons why it's easy to just point at the physicists who claim to know much about the universe, of course. They don't know anything. Because, first of all, they don't know where it ends. It has no edge. Which means that nobody knows where the center is. Nobody knows anything about the universe because it has no structure. Now, of course, I've shown you the structure of the universe. I am capable of teaching that, but no one else ever will. There are no classes that have ever been taught on the face of this earth that go through the sequence of the 7 cosmic units. And if there were, it would only get to 5 cosmic units anyway, and probably only 4, and likely only 3, and almost certainly only 2. And currently there are only 2 cosmic units, the star and the galaxy. Now, the black hole is not considered to be anything different from a galaxy, because all supermassive black holes are in galaxies. That has not been proved, but it is safe to assume, unless we get evidence otherwise, because all supermassive black holes are in galaxies. So, we're going to be getting into all of that, and also the quantum paradox, which has just been a thorn in the butt for a century. The greatest minds who have ever probed physics are absolutely helpless. Just everybody admits, and Richard Feynman speaks out quite clearly. Of course, he is deceased now, but he's very famous for saying that nobody understands it. And that's commonly admitted, and in fact an award was given by Stockholm, the Nobel Prize in Physics of 2022 was given explicitly for the discovery, the absolute law of physics now, is that it will never be understood. And now it's official, science has given up. It's also given up on trying to understand deep space. And all the efforts of the James Webb Telescope, that's not for gaining understanding. That's for fueling your distraction, so that you'll be excited about what you're told to be excited about, which will never matter to you or anybody else. Now here we take an entirely different view of science, called the Einsteinian principle. I just want to inform you, there is no other principle of science than the Einsteinian principle, which I've extended, that really is a law for humans in the universe. So I will tell you the absolute truth about what science is. Right now, what it is the road to wisdom. And that is the purpose of science. And technology, absolutely meaningless. Absolutely meaningless. Except it's of enormous benefit to humans on Earth as such. Now, it was meant to save the planet. It was meant to turn this planet into paradise. But paradise actually was burned up. And the humans were kicked out of paradise. And when they've tried to go back and call places paradise, like where I'm from, God burns it up. There is no paradise for humans on Earth. That's not where humans belong. How do we know that? Religion. Religion. A man named Yeshua came to this planet and a lot of things happened to him and he fulfilled a lot of things, and there's a whole book written about the people who gendered Yeshua. But the final chapter, the final minute, the final moment of Yeshua's contact with this earth was to leave. And he's not coming back. Now, if you're a Christian, as I am, and we'll share this with you because we're beyond worried about being killed by you. I am, because I'm 70 years old, minus 10 months. And Yeshua will come back, but it won't be to save the earth. Yeshua is coming back with the armies of heaven to destroy this horrible place. He will get here in time to stop the Israeli massacre. The Jews are not going to take over. It doesn't matter what Israel wants. It's an illegitimate nation of Nazis. And it's simply part of the United States. Your country of the United States of America is a Nazi state. And it's not controlled from within the United States. It's controlled from Israel, obviously. And your next job, should you decide to accept it, is to attack the oldest nation on earth, which God does love. But God hates Israel. And that means that God hates Marines. And he hates the United States Air Force. Hates it. I hope that that makes you shit in your pants. So now, what we're going to study today, in defiance of whatever's going on Earth, is the number 2. Now, the number 2 has a very strong history in American pedagogy. It means to shit. If you have to do a number 2, it means a turd or worse. One comedian pointed out, I believe it may have been Dave Chappelle, it's kind of inexplicable why that one is called number 2. That should be number 1. And, urinating should then be number 2. But that's not what we mean, either in mathematics or geometry, by the numbers 1 and 2. 1 is unity. There's a pseudo number, which I just explained in the last 2 lectures, so get your goddamn lazy ass off your ass. Get your ass off your ass. And if you don't know that 0 is a pseudo number, you better know, or you're not going to go anywhere. But 0 is a pseudo number, and it's destroyed physics. Absolutely destroyed it. By the way, indirectly, that's the reason why you have to suffer through calculus. All of you who are in the industry, who are forced into that miserable, it's a torture chamber for the mind. There are several mathematicians who have lost their minds by trying to conquer the calculus, really infinity, but those two are closely related. 0 is an infinity. But it's not known as that because, well, just the way things are. Don't worry about why things are the way they are in science. They just are. If you can have names like Big Bang and Black Hole and Dark Energy and Dark Matter, and the monkey meat theorem, it describes where all babies are from or from monkeys. howling in the trees of the savannah of Africa, where the gorillas are black and so are the humans. So it's a racist theory. If you can have that kind of stuff going on all the time, oh, and sentient machines. That's absolutely taken seriously now. And genetic splicing to cure cancer? It's not to cure cancer. It's to reclone the dinosaurs and make cyborg armies of basically mutants. So anyway, it is important to have this bracketing information so you understand the severity and really the honor of studying what we're going to study right now. So the number 0 has a meaning. It's nullity. 0 is so strange. It's in some ways it's stranger than infinity. Is nullity. Well, look around in the universe and see if you can find nullity. 0. There's relative emptiness. That's called space, but we know what space is. It's not nullity because light can travel through it. Well, it can't be null if light is traveling through it. Okay? Duh! So we have a pseudo number at the base of the linear number system, but in the spheric number system, there is no 0. Also, the nature of spherical geometry, the very first thing any child learns about the sphere, just doesn't even need to learn it, just realize it. It obviously has a center. Well, that center cannot be 0, or you won't have numbers that the universe likes. The universe already has its own number system. We've partially discovered it. Max Planck gave us a strong clue. By the way, the meaning of the quantum that's a value that we actually can take to the bank and use for the progress of science is exactly what I just said, that Max Planck did not discover that energy is quantized. He discovered a pseudo-characteristic of energy transfer that, due to the crippled nature of our mathematics system, it's predictable that we would find a jump. Schrödinger hated the jump. Planck hated the jump. Einstein hated the jump. That's the quantum jump. There's no such thing. It was already disproved by Ruđer Josip Bošković over a century before the atom was discovered. So, what is the quantum and why is it so valuable? It's the number 1 in spherical space. It's actually the quantum jump from 1 to 2. The quantum would be a jump from the initial state to the conclusion state. Because there is a time quantum in between, we have to discretize time. According to our linear number system, time cannot be continuous. That's called the measurement problem. But basically, the quantum paradox is trying to figure out what happens between 0 and 1. And you know, Georg Cantor devoted his whole life to explicating how we can fake out nature and make the number line continuous. Well, if we could, we wouldn't really need calculus. But that can't be done, because if you could do it and make the number line continuous, you wouldn't have any numbers. You would have no metric. It would be mush. It would be nothing. So you have to have linear numbers, which each number is a quantum. But then the question comes, what about the jump from 0 to 1? Well, that is not continuous because your number system won't allow it to be continuous. And so it's your number system that's fucking you up in physics. The quantum paradox is a mathematical paradox. It's because men have become stupid and lazy. So we're going to solve that, and the actual quantum jump is from 1 to 2. But what Ruđer proved is the jump, which is a spheric jump. It's a jump from, it's not a linear jump, ding, and a straight line, which is all the quantum is. It's a straight line jump, but something happens in there. that we can't get to. Well, we have to use our minds to figure that out. Well, there are no minds left. There's only a group mind. We've reached the age of socialism. Science is socialized, and so it's useless. Well, except for the governments, because they're the ones who socialize people. So science is literally satanic. Isn't that wonderful? I know. You get a lot of, let's check on my teeth, value-added information here that's of more value than anything you'll ever learn in science, are the things that I tell you just as asides. Because I'm a wisdom teacher. I'm a guide to heaven. And you can shove off if you have anything even to twitch about that. So the sphere has a center, and that the right way to say that is not that it's a point. That's the mistake of linear algebra. We are not going to use linear algebra ever again, because I discovered the forerunner of linear algebra, and the entire number system used by science is a derivative. It's a derivative system. It's actually the calculus, or I should say a calculus derivative of the real number system, which is not the real numbers named by jackasses called mathematicians. There's no such thing as a real number. Numbers are not real until you get to my number system, and then they are real. And that's a major step of evolution, that the numbers can now be used, and they are linear numbers, which seems to be a paradox. No, it's not a paradox. It's a superposition of hierarchy. We had to have the linear numbers first in order to have something to compose real numbers with. And real numbers are proportional numbers. There's always a ratio. And in order for those to work, the numbers that are related together have to be counting numbers. They're sometimes called natural numbers. The most precise and correct term, you don't say whole number because that's ambiguous because of zero. Natural numbers, that's ambiguous because of zero. Both of those terms have had both meanings. That's how confused mathematicians have been. Since the beginning of time, nobody has ever really understood mathematics. And all of your mathematicians are fairies. They're fairies. A real man needs geometry, from which mathematics is derived. But if you start with a line, you're going to be fine as long as you're willing to learn calculus, sine, cosine, infinite functions, and of course the complex number system, which is a two-component number system. And that's why it's so powerful. And complex numbers are used exclusively now. They're considered to be the superset of so-called real numbers. Well, the complex numbers are much better named than the real numbers. Because the real numbers, if they actually were to be given a name on the basis of reality, would be the unreal numbers. And the best way of saying that is that it's the fractal number system. And even better, it's the linear fractal number system. John Horton Conway proved that, for which he gets a Nobel Prize from me. I give out Nobel Prizes now. Not with $1 million, though, in kroner or any other currency. I give you something much better than that. So here we go. We're delving now into the secrets of the sphere. It has a center, correct? So we do need the concept of the straight line, and we know that from physics. It does occur in the universe in a strange form. There are 3 classes of straight line in the universe. Everything else is spherical. So we're talking about 999 out of 1,000. Anything in physics or science in the universe, they're spherical. The atom is a sphere. The proton is a sphere. Planets and stars are spheres. Galaxies and clusters of galaxies are spheres. The supermassive black hole is spherical. The universe is known to be spherical, at least out to the visible edge. It remains spherical. So everything is spherical, but the most astonishing sphericity so far discovered is the spherical propagation of electromagnetic radiation, sometimes called light, although that has two meanings. Because visible light and light are very often used synonymously. That's a mistake. If you want to say visible light, say visible light. Because in science, if you say light, you mean EMR. And that propagates spherically, and that's been known since about the time of Newton. Although Newton didn't think that light did that. Newton thought what modern physics thinks, that it's made of corpuscles, which means particles, which is untrue and absurd. But that's part of the quantum paradox, is you have no choice. If when you detect light, you detect it as particles, that happens in the photoelectric effect. But here's the strange thing, that even if Einstein had not discovered the photoelectric effect, we still have the quantum paradox for photonic transfer, which we call the propagation of light in free space. It appears that light from a distant object like a star or a galaxy or anything in deep space, anything that's point-like, or I'll just say point-like, stars are point-like objects, so are quasars, by the way, which really are, they're extragalactic objects. Actually, they're galactic objects. A quasar is basically, well, it's the only other luminous object in the universe besides a star, but it's a star, if you would. It's a particle, a cosmic particle the size of a galactic nucleus. So it's of the same scale as the supermassive black hole. The galactic nucleus, the supermassive black hole, and the quasar are all part of the same sequence. So the supermassive black hole is also spherical, with a zero at the center called the singularity, which is turned the entire cosmological industry into a laughing stock of zoo-caged baboons. They're just gibbering when they talk about cosmological expansion. And the lambda cold dark matter model that is now the reigning, it's the only theory of the universe, is horseshit. It could not be stupider if they tried just to make the stupidest idea that could be conceived in the mind of sinful man. That's cosmological expansion. By the way, the Big Bang is just an afterthought. The real devilish notion is that the universe is expanding. Only a monkey would accept that. No scientist can possibly entertain that notion. It's absurd. But it's based on the redshift of light, which, in order to solve a satanic propagandistic notion that has been forced into science against the will of rational men, and now we need to get rid of it, there's only one way. And it's not by flipping it off or pointing the finger at everybody who's guilty. That won't do anything. There's only one way. You have to show a better theory. And Wikipedia says that, and I'm forced to accept that. There's really no way around it. But thanks be to heaven, I have the answer. So that's what I'm going to share with you now. But for you to get it, I'm going to try to save you the agony. You'll never get it. I don't think anybody else will ever understand this. You're just too stupid. Has nothing to do with your native intelligence. God gave you the rational intelligence to understand what I'm going to tell you. The reason you won't understand it is because you don't want to. It's your fault that you can't understand rationality. So that's a challenge to you. I hope you accept the challenge and now you're excited. or perhaps angry, but as long as you listen attentively, you'll get it. But only if you're qualified. Nobody sneaks into heaven. You got to earn your way into heaven. You got to show worth, value. Well, you're going to show it now by listening to me, because I do know. And anybody who's been listening to me at all, if you've heard one or more of my prior lectures, you know goddamn well that I am a man of wisdom in science. Wisdom is rational. It's the counterpart of love that completes a human being. A human being needs two things to become complete. You need love, so that it's predominant with no exceptions. You always love. You don't ever violate love. Well, there isn't a human being alive who can say that they've done that one right. But there's mercy. The other one is much more rigorous, and there's no mercy. You have to achieve wisdom, particularly if you're male, because that's your only reason for being male, other than being the necessary other part of a zygotic convocation. It's just, never mind. But men are supposed to be wise. That doesn't mean intelligent. That has nothing to do with IQ. It has to do with an onboard system that you're blueprinted with. It basically just begins with common sense and gets better. But the problem that a man faces is that he's going to die, and therefore he has a mission. All the romance comes forward. Everything that we celebrate in top-notch fiction that makes us excited, all of it is true in science. In terms of wisdom, that is the goal of science. It's for a rational man who wants to be righteous before heaven and serve humanity well and be his best. This is how you do it. You shoot for wisdom. That's science. That's exactly what it is. And science, in the sense of the pursuit of wisdom, not technology, but wisdom, that's the plan of salvation that's in the Bible, that Jesus promoted and died to vindicate, was so that you could learn this from me. And that's the irony, mispronounced, although that's debated, irony of heaven. There is no sense of humor higher than heaven. You can't outdo heaven in any category. You think you're mean in killing the Palestinians, or you think you're being smart by invading Ukraine, or you just hate and you're proud of it and so you're a Republican. You're not getting away with anything, and you're not cruel. You're not cruel enough no matter what tortures you perpetrate on innocent human beings. Heaven can do worse to you, and she's going to prove it on you. That's called retribution, and if you don't believe that, you're nobody. You'll never be anything. You might as well join the Marines. You might as well just waste your life invading Iran, which will probably be in 2024. So it's not too late for you to go down to your recruiting station and sign up for the worst catastrophe ever to hit the Earth, which will end the Earth. Probably in 2024. So that's enough. That's 35 minutes. But just to give you something along the lines of the promised third in this series, to close out our 5 basic units, we have the line, the circle, and the sphere. That is geometry. That is everything in geometry. Is the line, the circle, and the sphere. Nothing else matters at the base. This is the foundation of geometry. And it's hierarchical. The sphere comes first, the circle is derived from the sphere, and the line is derived from the circle. And I was going to tell you where the lines appear in the universe, Very rare to see a line in the universe. One of them you'll see, every child sees, the half moon. That's a straight line. It's called the terminator. The terminator of the moon. The terminator. When the terminator is a straight line, it divides the moon exactly in half. Exactly in half. And so the straight line is exactly that. It is the geometric object that divides the circle in half. And that half is 1/2. Those are the two other objects you need to understand that are not considered to be geometrical objects. They're considered to be numeric objects. And those are called numbers. And those two numbers, 1 and 2, are the basis of everything in mathematics. I proved that in 2022. And the number 1 and the number 2 by themselves establish a superior number system that mankind has never even guessed at, except the Greeks did. The Greeks used what are called proportional numbers. 1/2 to a Greek is a proportional number. Today we call it division. That's 1 divided by 2. That is a distinct error. You were lied to by your baboon professors. 1/2 is incorrectly called division. It's not division. It's proportionality. You can then form a system called the linear system. But in order to have a linear system of numbers, you need a 0. But in physical space, there is no 0, because there's no such thing as nullity in the universe. That is so commonsensical that to teach us otherwise is an example of a big lie, just such as Hitler utilized. So you've been lied to by Nazis. And whether you think they're innocent or not makes no difference. That's up to a higher power to decide who's guilty and who's not. That's not up to humans to decide who's guilty in these things. You do have to react and you do have to decide on your own. But that doesn't mean you do anything about it. Because you're not a judge. Your mind is a judge, though, and your mind has to judge everything. And if you hate something like Jews or gays, you go right ahead. You must have that and support it inside your own head. The moment that leaks outside your goddamn sinful, drenched brain, whatever punishment comes your way, you're going to deserve. Because you're not a judge, Charlie, except in the privacy of your own mind. All right. So 1 and 2 are used to construct the number system of quantum space, which is synonymous with spherical space. Learn that because that's a key to understanding what is the quantum. Spherical space is made of shells. And that's obvious, and you should accept that, because if you can't understand that, go back to your cage. The universe does not use straight lines, except in the case of the moon. This can be generalized to other planets. It's a feature of the sphericity of an object, a celestial object, being flooded with light from one direction. It divides that sphere exactly in half. Exactly in half. So that if you were above the moon looking down with the sun out of view and you're looking down and the earth is a little bit outside the picture and you're just looking down at the moon, you would see 1/2 of the moon. Exactly 1/2 of the moon. Once again, that is 1 proportion to. 1 proportion to. We call that a fraction. That's convenient, and despite my rant against division, it is division. The problem with division, if you're using linear numbers, is you can't. Because there's a 0 in the system. You can't divide by 0. Everyone knows that. The universe taught us that. That's absolute law of God. You can't divide by 0. It's impossible. It's ridiculous. You can't divide by 0. That means that the linear number system does not allow division, which means it doesn't allow multiplication, which means you can't use the linear number system for anything unless you want to use it on Earth, and then the penalty then is calculus. And then you can get anything you want. And that's too much to resist for sin-drenched man. So we use calculus with linear numbers. Oh, you can't in heaven. It doesn't work in physics. It only works in industry. And then you can make lasers and reactors and jets and microchips. You can make anything you want using calculus with linear numbers. But if you want to compute anything that's real, such as an atom or anything at macro scale in the universe, you cannot use the linear number system. But there is an exception. And this is just created the drama of human history and science. There's such a thing as a straight line linear spatial separation. We call it distance, and that works on Earth. Well, it also works in heaven. And this is the exception that proves everything I said to be just half the story. Because when you look at a star, the photons which are coming from that star are going on the straightest line. It's the definition of a straight line, is the flight of a photon from a star to your eye or photographic plate. Those have to be photons, or we wouldn't have photography. They have to be photons, or we would not have vision. They have to be photons, or there wouldn't be any light. Because a propagating sphere cannot be recaptured. The propagating sphere model of light, which is known, and this is the quantum paradox at the photonic scale, the propagation of light cannot be recovered. There should be no such thing as visible light. There should be no such thing as light. Because as that sphere propagates, it has to lose energy. It doesn't. Light, when it propagates as a sphere, does not lose energy. What it does, though, it actually does, but not in intensity. It loses none of its intensity, which by the spherical square law, actually it's the cube law for volume space, it's just disappearing, it's dissipating. That's not what happens, though. And that really, to me, puts the whole quantum mechanical paradox system to shame. It's really, paradoxes are paradoxes. No, they're not. They're hierarchical. And the most amazing paradox ever discovered by mankind is the propagation of light in free space. Because you should not be able to see that star. If you stop and think about it for a moment, this is the reason that it just amazes children that those stars are points. They're called point sources. They're so far away that they appear even on photographic plates, to be points. We've somewhat penetrated that. We are now able to measure the diameters of some stars very close to us. And even to get readings, little blips, that show that they're very likely to have planetary systems. That's extremely difficult to do because those stars are point sources. But if light is going out spherically from that point that far away, you shouldn't be able to see it at all. By the time it gets to your eye, it's such a tiny fraction of intensity than what it was when it left the star, you should not be able to see it at all. Science has no explanation for vision. Science has no explanation for the propagation of light. It never has. And that is the biggest paradox of all. Well, I'm going to show you how to solve that, but it's going to blow you. I'm an American and it's raining, so I can't go outside, so there we are. It's a little over 45 minutes. That's the max. We'll be right back with another lecture today where I'll close out without any more stories or wisdom. No more wisdom. You don't need wisdom. You need the goddamn answer. That's why you're tuning in. Oh, if you are tuning in for the wisdom, that's much better, because I'm the only wise man left in America who's capable of communication, which is the definition of science. This is Anagalactic. Don't forget to keep looking up.